Matthew. This program. And make that much And as we get started, it would be remiss of me not to ask the coordinating committee of the Kentucky Poor People's Campaign to please stand up. We've worked really hard. And don't be shy. Not only the Poor People's Campaign, we have agencies and we have organizations, and I would like for all of you all to stand up. All of us, none is in the house. I want everybody to stand up. We've got former Representative Attica Scott in the house. We've really worked hard to pull this together, and we're not gonna let no rain stop us from celebrating. This is what I say. Everybody that's in the house is supposed to be in the house. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about who's not here. We're here to wake up the sleeping giant. So let me introduce myself, and then I'm gonna sit down and turn it over to our MCs and the lady of the house that has welcomed us into her church that she attends. My name is Tana Fogel. I'm the lead organizer for Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. I am so happy to be in front of you. I'm an impacted person. You will hear from impacted people tonight. I am one of those who lost their right to vote because of imprisonment, but God got another chance and gave me one. Not only did he do that, they done went crazy up in Lexington and elected me into office. So right now, with the hearty welcome, I will turn it over to Representative. She will always be my representative. So I will turn it over to the MCs who will introduce Representative Attica Scott and the rest of the program. Our MCs for tonight, it's my great honor to introduce Matthew Williams, NAACP in Lexington. And I'll probably get in trouble, but I am so proud of this next MC. It is my sister, Priscilla Johnson.
All right, thank you, Tanya. Good evening. As she said, I'm Priscilla Johnson, and this is Matthew Williams. We're gonna be your MCs for this wonderful night. Little housekeeping. The restrooms back to the back there on the right-hand side. Men's is this side, I believe, but women's is there, or is it just the one? Okay, all right, okay, all right. So tonight we want to welcome you to the Waking the Sleeping Giant. Did y'all hear that? Waking the Sleeping Giant voter registration rally. I see Miss Gracie Lewis back there. Hey, Miss Gracie. Hey. All right now. Okay. We also want to just thank the Greater Friendship Baptist Church here for allowing us to be in your sanctuary tonight. Thank you so much. So we're going to let Matthew say a few words.
Let's try that good evening one more time. Good evening. That was a little bit better. One more time. Good evening. Okay. We are here tonight for Waking the Sleeping Giant. Who is the sleeping giant? Does anybody know? Oh. Say it louder. We are. Who is the sleeping giant? We are. We want to do it again, don't we? Who is the sleeping giant? We are. That's right. We are the sleeping giant. I had the opportunity of being with Councilmember Fogel at the Capitol when we were supposed to be having some type of meeting one day, and the meeting got completely canceled, right? It actually ended up being Hip Hop Commemoration Day. It ended up being a really cool day. But before we left, we got a phone call from Bishop Reverend Barber. And he said he wanted to come back to Kentucky. Yeah, go ahead, you clap up for that. Yeah. He wanted to come back to Kentucky for a reason. Because he sees something in us. He sees something special here in these lands. He sees a special connection brewing up in the people here in Kentucky. He said we have an opportunity to be a pilot for not just the rest of the country, but for the rest of the global South. Right? And he talked about us building a fusion coalition, a working class poor, working middle class, people of all races, coming together for common good. Now we know 4 years ago, right, we had a governor who signed an executive order that got over 190,000 people with felonies in their past their right to vote back. Yes. Everybody deserves a voice. That's what tonight is about. Unfortunately, when that executive order was passed, there was no awareness campaign set up, right? Nobody went out and was telling anybody about their rights, except for the people that you see here in this room. So let's shout out all of the organizations that came together to make this happen tonight. For the past 4 years, they've been doing that work. And that's what we come here tonight, man. We just come here to charge everybody up, to have a little joy, to have a little celebration, to have a little connection as we get ready to do our duty and go to that voter box. So that's what Waking the Sleeping Giant is. Who's the sleeping giant? We are. Who's the sleeping giant? We are. Who's the sleeping giant? We are.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get started. But before we get started, we want to let you all know, write this down. Next Tuesday, October the 10th, is the last day to register to vote. Did y'all hear that? Next Tuesday, October the 10th, is the last day to register to vote. And when do you vote? Tuesday, November the what? 7th. All right. Okay, bro.
All right, we're gonna have representative, my forever representative, Jay, look, my forever representative, Attica Scott, come up and do a welcome, y'all.
Thank y'all so much. Appreciate everyone for being here this evening. I love y'all right back. The only reason I'm up here is because y'all are in my church. So welcome to my church. So, good evening and welcome to the Greater Friendship Baptist Church. I am Attica Scott, a proud congregant here at Greater Friendship and Director of Special Projects at Forward Justice Action Network. I bring you greetings on behalf of my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Derek L. Miles. Yes. And I appreciate Pastor Miles for opening the doors of the church to our community. We have the ability right now to ground the South in radical love and revolutionary kindness. It is why I am a member of a church named Friendship. We have the ability right now to build our collective power. I am a woman of faith, and I know that it is past time for a moral shift in policy and politics. It is time for a sea change that sweeps this nation, beginning right here in Kentucky and across the South. I welcome you, the multiracial youth-led movement that is rising up across the South and this country. We must nourish and nurture our movement with abundant care and love. I welcome you, the powerful and the unafraid. You who are Black, white, Latin, Indigenous, Asian, and Pacific Islander. You who are rural and suburban and urban. You who are trans and non-binary, houseless and hungry. I welcome you. I welcome those of you who believe, like Forward Justice Action Network, that democracy is an action. The democracy that we have come to know in the United States is gasping for its last breath. I welcome you who know that it is shameful that we are living in the shadow of the 10th year in this country without a restored Voting Rights Act. We are at a moral crossroads. Generations from now, we will be judged by our actions and our inactions. Building our political power means that we show up, speak up, and stand up for and with one another. Whether it is in opposition to ignorant attacks on critical race theory, banning books and drag shows, attacking trans youth, or failure to end the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We are a force to be reckoned with, and we will not accept a fearful future for our children or for ourselves. My friend, Dr. Gabriela Alcalde, says that when communities are unwell, they silence those who speak for justice, love, and collective dignity. May your voices be heard in this sacred space. May the communities that we are building be well. May justice roll down like a river and righteousness like a mighty stream. We are the rising multiracial majority that understands that as the South goes, so goes the nation. As the prophets of this house say, let it be so. Welcome.
Thank you, Attica. Thank you. Let me hear everybody say love. Let me hear you say love over. Love over. Let me hear you say love over fear. 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 Now, thank you, Attica, for pointing to that abundance, the abundance of care and love that we have access to at any time that we want. All right? Coming up next, we're going to see some of that abundance in love and joy. Coming up first
is Rosa Williams. Our second one, we will have Mighty Shades of Ebony. Speaker Flaco Alleman.
Yeah, Flaco. Yeah.
And Speaker Emily Smith.
All right.
That's the way they're called.
Before little Rosa comes up, Mr. Nebula, will you pray us in, please?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No. That's okay. That's okay. Hey, we're going to go with
Can you pray us in?
We're going to ask Mr. Charles Neblett to come up and pray us in. If y'all don't know Charles Neblett, y'all need to go look at y'all history books. Check out who the Freedom Singers were. We have been blessed with his presence and Miss Marvina and their son. So thank you, Mr. Charles Neblett.
Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father, we come thanking and praising you for the blessings you bestowed upon us. We praise you and thank you for this gathering. And we pray for every soul in here. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Neblett. All right. Y'all ready with that song up top? All right. So once again, we got Rosa Williams coming up with an opening dance. She choreographed herself. All right. Then we're going to be followed by Mighty Shades of Ebony, and then a couple speakers, including Flaco Alaman. Come on up, bro. Mighty Shades of Ebony. Let's get it.
To do things great in life, you have to have an empowered mind. And it's important to put yourself first, because if you don't, you might end up coming last. So DJ, drop that beat. Yeah. Realize the word of time lies and sacrifice, not beneficial, stop paying the pain, it's just a river. Funerals, sound like numerals. Getting into it though, that's the instinct. You got a reaction, but not no instinct. Love you feel like blue ink, you ever use no matter. But your eyes see these new things. Beauty is like power in the world with a balance. Happiness is tragic and nothing has meaning. These things they be feeling for anything. So kill the blank, a kind of sad happy thing. But her life was on Saturday. She was losing like Saturday. So got to give up on everything. Yeah, nothing is something, the blessing, the much. She's running, gunning, but coming, nothing is nothing. Yeah. It's crazy how the world is changing much, but we haven't evolved. It's crazy how race still plays a massive toll. It's crazy how the media creates this wall. And it's crazy how it's portrayed to be so tall. Let's start with the prison. Incarceration rate 13% up to date. But the rate is 30%. Yeah.
Tell us that we're insane. Mama being up our brains. They just want the power. They just want the power. Tell us that we're insane. Mama being up our brains. They just want the power. They just want the power.
I pray for this cancer killing me. Yeah. It's like I fight for. I'm like, don't wanna die. That's why I try to reach. Above the sky, beyond the stars, cruising up in the sky, and I like Lord, don't want to come to my bar. What part of the star? Parking in the city, yeah, you know who we are, and you know who we are, and you know what we do. We open up minds and eyes to the people that are just like you. Let's take a look into the black man's mental. What happened was my society has a riddle. If you ain't 6'3", then you ain't tall enough. If you ain't got 100K, then you ain't old enough. We hide behind the veil so we cannot be successful. So my answer's like I'm plus a turn to a ghetto. To have super strength like I'm out the army. I'm a little bit into some. That's love. We all have different passions, styles and dreams. We have to live it because of our society. All our boys and our sisters, but I'm still what's love. And I have a lot of stuff to do. Love me enough. What's that word? My white thing apart. What you say? They just want the power. What they want? They just want the power. Tell us that we're innocent. My white thing apart. Tell them they just want the power. Tell them they just want the power. Thank you.
Hey, let's give it up one more time. Mighty Shades of Ebony. Let's give it up one more time. Rosa Williams. Young people, man. That's the future. Up next, we're gonna have Flacco. Come give us some words.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Flacco Olivan. My government name is Bonifacio, and I thank you for your time today. I'm not going to take too long. But one of the things I want to talk to people about today is democracy, and not just democracy. Because one of the things I found out is we say democracy, a lot of people have a lot of different ideas of what democracy means. So I wanted to start out with sharing with you what I think of when I envision a a democracy. A democracy is a full participation by the people. What that means to me is that every Kentuckian has the opportunity to participate in our system. Can we agree on that? Can we level set right there? So I'm
7 years later, and never voted. 15 years since then of being part of the Voting Rights Coalition, we fought every year for myself and folks just like me to be able to vote and participate in the process. And for the last 12 years, every year I come and I speak at events and I think of what I can say to show people that you should support me, that I've deserved the right to vote. Recently at the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, an attorney said, one of the things they said about me and folks like me is that we haven't done enough to deserve the right to vote. Now, can we talk a little bit about white supremacy real quick? Is that okay? Is that safe? So white supremacy culture teaches us that it's about the individual, it's not about the collective, right? And how fast the enemy swoops in every year and causes division, right? And what happens every year? We start the conversation, who doesn't deserve the right to vote? Tell me if I'm wrong. Who doesn't? The person who may have committed perjury, the person who may have committed rape, the person who may have falsified documents. Who is it that we don't want to participate in the democracy? That's not a healthy democracy to me. Now tell me if I'm wrong. All right, we're going to keep going. So we need a healthy democracy, right? As I mentioned, we've been arguing at the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. We're on our way to the U.S. Supreme Court right now. Our lawyers are preparing the brief to fight for a non-arbitrary voting rights restoration system in Kentucky. And you know what that means? Who knows what non-arbitrary is? Who knows what capricious is, right? We're in the house of the Lord. We can talk about capriciousness, right? And what that does when you give a person, any person, regardless of political party, the opportunity to make capricious decisions on who gets to participate in democracy, it's wrong, y'all. As we think about getting to the polls this year, don't just think about casting a ballot, but think about folks like myself who have been fighting 15 years and longer to have that opportunity. Think about what it means to continue to educate yourself about elections and who these politicians are and where they stand on issues. Ask yourselves, we've been fighting this lawsuit through 2 governors. Now, there's a pickle for you, but we ain't gonna stay there. But what I will say is we need a non-arbitrary voting rights restoration system. And as we go to the ballots this November, I hope everybody makes their voice heard. I hope you sign our petition back there saying you stand with us, because that's how I really know if you stand with me or not. It's not about what I've done to deserve it, because just as many things as I can tell you why I deserve the votes, there's probably somebody that can tell you equal amount of things is why I shouldn't. And that's reality, right? Because one thing we know is that multiple things can be true at the same time. We're building a healthy democracy. At the same time, our democracy is under attack. So my personal plea to everybody today, and I know I'm out of time, is to not only get to the polls, educate yourselves. We've got voter guides in the back by the bundle. Let's educate Kentuckians, and let's not be afraid, and let's not fall for the enemy's tactics every year of gatekeeping the very thing that we fight for. Thank you.
Thank you, Flacco.
Thank you.
Up next, we got Emerly Smith. As Emerly makes their way up, just remember we got a voter registration table in the back. Those voter guides, take a stack of them on the way out and spread them out. That's right. All right. Can we get Emerly to the front? Emily is not here. Okay. So that's cool. So guess who's coming up next?
The real young prodigy.
Yeah.
Right.
Real young prodigies. Come on up.
Yeah.
Good evening. No, you know what? I'm a school teacher, so we gotta do better. Good evening. Good evening. say, this ain't funny. So don't you dare laugh. Okay, I'm gonna need you to do it with some fervor. Come on, say, this ain't funny. So don't you dare laugh. Say, this ain't funny. So don't you dare laugh. These young people are the real young prodigies. And Attica, we love you. They reached out to her during the pandemic to be in their video, The Crown video, and guess what? Because of Attica, because of Ja'Cory Arthur, they worked with local officials and got the Crown Act passed. They are still working statewide, and they are having this spring a youth Crown rally, and we hope to see you there. But the song they're doing is a remix of Slick Rick's Children's Story, and you all are gonna say, this ain't funny. So don't you dare laugh. Say, this ain't funny. So don't you dare laugh. Are y'all ready? Oh, okay. We gotta move the...
Gotcha.
Johnson.
Mason. Woo! All right.
Wow, that's going to be a tough act to follow. I don't have any rapping. Thank you. My name is Mason Kalinsky. I'm the organizing director for Hood to the Holler. Thank you so much. I'm sorry Charles isn't here. That's the number one thing I say at every event I go to. But more than just the organizing director at Hood to the Holler, I'm also a trans man. Thank you. For anyone who doesn't know, being a trans man means that I was assigned female at birth, but I now identify as a man. The trans community has faced a lot of attacks this year, both across the country and here in Kentucky. Here in Kentucky this year, they took away health care for trans kids, among other things. I know trans kids. I work with trans kids. I was a trans kid. And I was in Frankfurt the day this bill passed, and the week leading up to it, trying desperately to keep them from passing it. The day before it passed, a less harmful version of it was proposed, and it almost passed. They delayed the vote. They voted to delay the vote, and that vote to delay the vote passed by 2 votes. That was the difference between the less harmful bill and the more harmful bill, was 2 votes. Since then, I've been on the phone with parents sobbing because they don't know how to keep their kids from killing themselves. And the thing I keep thinking when I take all these calls is that we were 2 votes away from a different outcome. And that's been tough. But what helps me feel better is community. That's right. Yeah. I'm the organizing director of Hood to the Holler. I go from the Hood to the Holler. When I leave here tonight, I am going to be driving all the way to Perry County, Kentucky in Appalachia. And one thing I hear from everywhere I go, Paducah to Pikeville, Cincinnati to Somerset, is people saying, my vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I vote for. I'm just one person. I'm the only person in my community, and people aren't listening to me. I'm here to tell you, your vote matters. And if you and all of your neighbors, yeah. Your vote matters. And if you and all of your neighbors who all feel like your vote doesn't matter come together to take power, there is nothing that's going to stop you. There is nothing that's going to stop us. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My young people, they have on cross colors. I know. Right? I'm Savage Shabazz. I'm founder and CEO of Life Coach Each One Teach One Reentry Fellowship. I'm also president of All of Us Are None. We assist individuals that are coming home from incarceration and make sure they stay on the right track, give them the tools that they need as well. We also have a voting rights campaign. When the young man mentioned we've been doing this for 4 years, some of us in here has been doing this for 4 years and a lifetime. This year and last year, we actually focused on not going inside the communities, but going inside the jail. Because we have a lot of people throughout our communities that are incarcerated that can't vote. $12, I bonded people out, worked for the Bail Project, I bonded people out for $12.50, $25, $50, $100. And you're telling me that this person can't exercise their right to vote because they don't have any money? So we go inside the jails. We comb all the way through the jails. We got voter registration cards. We got lucky. We got the county clerk's office to team up with us and send in the absentee ballots. So the last day for some individuals is going to be Friday and Monday, because we got to get in those jails and we got to get our people, because it's not a privilege, it's a right. I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I was sentenced to a total of 28 years Again, I was sentenced to a total of 28 years. I served 6.5. The program that I just spoke about, I designed that program at 1200 River Road, Green River Correctional Complex. When I say if you have to do time, do your time constructively. Because I stuck with this program when people didn't believe in it and told me to leave it alone, told me to stop wearing the t-shirts at work because I was giving more time to that. But I was actually giving more time to my people in my community. So we go inside the jails and we designed a voter education guide because people just don't know. People need to be educated. The guides that are out there, we have to do this collectively. I'll take a stack of those guides and go in the jail tomorrow because people need to know. People don't know about the judicial system, executive. They just don't know what it is. They don't know who to vote for. So it's up to us to educate our people and educate our communities with the knowledge they need to make a vote. Again, it is not a privilege. It's a right. One more thing before I go. Everybody in here knows how a farm works, right? You got a chicken. Its job is to lay the egg. We got cows. They give the milk. They both give something. But if you want this bacon omelet, the pig has nothing to give but its life. That's how we have to get out in our communities when it comes time to voting. That's right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I had to write something. Hey, good evening, everybody. My young people, y'all are so beautiful and gorgeous. I love it. I'm so grateful and honored to be, first of all, in the house of the Lord, but definitely among my brothers and sisters, okay? So with that being said, let me start out, first of all, I gotta take me away from me, y'all. Lord Father, just take me away from me. Be who you are in me and through me. Be the thoughts that I think as I think, and then most definitely the words out of my mouth as I speak them, that they may be delivered to your people as you will have them receive it. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so, yeah, I gotta come out of it, right? Because I'm trouble. Okay, so with that being said, okay, so I have to start out with, so I prayed about it, like what am I, because it's not me. I needed to come to all my brothers and sisters. So I'm gonna start out with Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, and it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others." That's my plan. Remember that word, plan, okay? So my interest is my fellow man, you all, my brothers and my sisters. So which brings me to how I got here. So I grew up in this underclass family, okay? The odds stacked against me, first of all, because of class, of course, but then with substance use and alcohol abuse, and then the narrative that society had set for me. Not knowing that of the many options that I have, except for survival, I fell victim to the circumstances, being that of a status quo. So I always had this plan of greatness in mind because I seen the great things that my mother accomplished with so little in a society that required so much. So I tried my hardest and I fought my best through a struggle in which I felt that I was alone, that I didn't matter. So I had so many great ideals in a world that seemed unreal simply because I had no plan. And because of not knowing what I didn't know, my struggle carried through to my own substance use, in and out of the judicial system, fighting off a felony for years and years and years, homeless. So I was shook to the core, right? Because it's like we're failed. I've failed. My people are failed. So, and it was based on a system because of the major stigma placed on them by the society that deems us citizens, down to the minor of the zip code that they resided in. So things had to change. I just didn't know how. So after some soul searching, and once I did that, I had this opportunity at our state capitol to speak with some representatives and some legislators about problems that our community faced. That's where I met Vocal Kentucky. It stands for Voices of Community, Activists, and Leaders. Once I met them, I could not turn back because there I found some community. I found that we mattered. I found that we could make a difference. I found that a plan finally could be placed, all right? So, with that being said, I was blessed with another opportunity to lead our efforts for the Get Out the Vote effort. So we got a little team. We out here in the city. We down here where it definitely matters, where we need to get out the vote, where people don't know. So we're trying to educate. I'm grateful for those planners in the front. Know your reps. Know what's going on, right? So what I want to teach my children, my nieces, my nephews, my Amores, my Rylers, my Terrans, is that to start the plan and get registered to vote. So leave out knowing this: a person that is failing to plan is a person that is planning to fail.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. We want to again thank our young people tonight. Give them another applause. Woo. And I would be remiss if I didn't say hi to my dear friend Charles Booker over there. Charles, good to see you. Thank you so much. Charles Booker in the house. All right. The theme tonight, waking the sleeping giant. Well, folks, we have a giant amongst us tonight. A former president of the NAACP, the National Board of the NAACP, a pastor, a professor, a father, and a drum major for justice.
Yeah, so I would just say, y'all know when you hear something special from somebody special, and it seems like everything that comes out of their mouth aligns with all the energy that is inside of you.
Yes.
That's Bishop Barber. Every time I hear this man speak, I hear my energy go into alignment.
Yes.
So with that, we're gonna call on Yara to come on and play Bishop William Barber in.
William Barber, Reverend William Barber. Yes. Yes.
When I say forward together, I want you to say not one step back. Forward together. Forward together. Come on, one more time. Forward together. Y'all do know I'm not an entertainer, right? So my job is to come and create a choir. Young people, I love you. I absolutely love you. I just turned 60 in July, so I couldn't get it. I was clapping for you, but I just couldn't quite get it there. I can't even go any further. We're gonna do a song together. That's what we're gonna do, okay? And so you go and clear your throats and get all of that going. But we can't go any further. I can't go any further without honoring Mr. Neblett and his wife. Now look. So we say thank you. We love you. We chant that a little bit. So we want to say to you, thank you. We love you. 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 Yes. So keeping in that same tradition right there, because the music from the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s is what I grew up on. I grew up listening to my mother sing it. I grew up singing it myself with them. And so this is what we're gonna do tonight together. There's a song that says, come on, come on, come on, don't you wanna go? Now this started in the church like many of the songs did. And it took on a little tweaking along the way. And by the time it got to the streets where we were singing it, it said, come on, come on, come on, don't you wanna vote? Right? And so we're gonna do this all together. Now what we do is we stand together because we stand together. If you're able, if you are not able, somebody's gonna stand for you. Right? So I'm gonna ask if you are able to please stand.
And I don't like going anywhere without making note that when we come together to sing and build this energy like we did tonight, it is called collective effervescence. It is that thing that bubbles over when you get together and you're fighting for the same cause. Young people have it. Older people have it. It goes across lines of demarcation. And we're going to make it work in here tonight, okay? Doesn't matter if you're alto, soprano, tenor. We're just going to sing it all together, all right? Now, I'm going to give you the choir rehearsal version so that you'll know exactly how this goes. And if you've heard your grandmother sing this or your mother sing this, you can jump right in. And it simply goes, it's a call and response. Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Oh, come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Yes, I'm going to vote. Now, before we do this, I want to hear you do that real quick. And then we're going to pick it up a little bit and we're going to run on with it, all right? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote?
Hello, Kentucky. And we've got people viewing from all over the country. We are live streaming in all 50 states and around the world. So say hello to everybody out there. Say hello, everybody. Hello, hello. And then say forward together, not one step back. I want to first of all just thank God for the privilege. I heard the late young sister say, let me get out of myself, because you really can't do anything in yourself. And Tana and to Pam and to Kentuckians for a better commonwealth, and to all of you who gathered. A few weeks ago, I didn't know if I would even be here with you all. I was doing an event and had some issues during the course of the year, very tired and some very painful, and I was getting ready to preach a consecration service for some bishops and ministers, and I literally thought, this is going to be the last sermon I'm going to do. I'm going to preach this sermon and I'm going to be out of here. I was that sick. I didn't tell anybody because, like many of you all, I can mask stuff pretty good. Any of y'all good maskers? People don't really know how you feel. And long story short, they put me in the hospital afterwards. I don't remember the sermon, and tested me for 7 kinds of cancer, and but found out in the middle of it that I actually had something called gallstones. And you know, I wouldn't wish gallstones on my enemy. And I had a very severe case. One of them was the size of a golf ball. That we didn't know that though until we did the surgery, had some complications because of that. What was supposed to be 45 minutes turned into a 2 hours and 45 minutes. And they had to lower my breathing from to once every 15 seconds, 4 times a minute, in order to calm my body down. And but you know what? God is good, mighty good. And we are here. I feel 110% better. I'm glad to be here. I'm here by the grace of God, but because God will supply all your need according to God's riches in glory. And then we were coming, I called Tana, I said, you know, I'm gonna try to be there next week, but it's been a season. My nephew had a near fatal accident in Georgia, 12 broken ribs, contusions in the lung, punctured lung, broken vertebrae, broken cheekbone, broken eye socket, went over in a ravine. But by the grace of God, somebody saw a little red light. And we don't know how long he was there, but by the grace of God, he went in that way Saturday before last and walked out this past Saturday. You hear what I'm saying? By the grace of God. And he's a young man. And so I'm just coming here full of knowing what God can do and being so thankful and so gracious. You know, COVID, I'm gonna get to what I want to talk about, but COVID should have taught us all that breath is something we ought not be wasting. I know we have a person in this movement that lost 21 members of their family in a 30-mile radius because Mississippi wouldn't expand health care. And a lot of people died, Charles, not because COVID killed them, because of the lack of health care. I have a cousin who lost 38 members of her family in a community where they closed hospitals because that state would not expand health care. But all of that goes back to who we elect, right? I also want to say tonight to the young folk, you are a part of the leadership of today, not tomorrow. We don't need you tomorrow. We need you right now. And back in the day, when the SNCC, many of the folk in SNCC were 18 and 19, they couldn't vote because the law had not yet been changed to allow 21-year-olds to vote, but they still fought in the movement. So you may not be 18, but we need you. We need you knocking on doors. We need you encouraging folk, right? And I also want you to know you don't have to throw away the music from the 60s and pick up a new, just put it all together, sing it all. That's right. Sing it all. Don't sing some of it. Sing it all. Now, I'm going to do some teaching tonight because we got an audience all over the country. The first thing I want to teach tonight is that actually right now in this room, we are not modeling what winning looks like. Don't get mad with me. See, you look at the room, we got rows of all black folk and rows of all white folk. That ain't gonna get it. The only way you're gonna win is through moral fusion. So I'm gonna ask the room to shift. I want folk to stand up, I want the organist to play a little bit, and I want you to find somebody, be COVID safe. If you feel like wearing your mask, go find somebody you don't know and shift this room and sit beside them so it looks black, white, Latino, Asian, gay, straight, young. Come away to my organist. Don't tell me he left on me. I need my organist. If he's not here, I'll make it myself. All right, come on, come on. Some of y'all go back there, some of y'all come up here. I need folk with some placards, right? Young folk, just stand up and tell somebody, come sit beside me. Come sit beside me. On this side, we need some switching, because if you don't get to know some people you don't know, we're never gonna win. Now introduce yourself. Make sure you know who comes. Don't everybody get on the left side either. Some of y'all get to the left side. Some of y'all stay on my right side. Right. Now. All right, I need a few folk from the last 3 rows on this side. I need some of y'all to move back on this side. All of y'all went to the left. But we don't talk left and right, we talk right and wrong. So the last 2 rows, I need y'all to come back and mix it up. Yeah, you don't have to get too tight, you can still be spread out. Now, there we go. 'Cause camera shots, I want y'all to stay with the crowd. Don't shoot the other places, okay? Just shoot up here. Now, look at the person and say, what up? Now, all right. I want to suggest tonight that if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. In the testimony circle of my faith tradition, I come from the country of North Carolina, we had testimony service. And every now and then, when things were going rough, one of the saints would get up and say, if we ever needed the Lord, we sure enough need him now. But those same saints recognized that faith without works is dead. So when they called on the Lord, they never called on the Lord thinking that they would not have to do something as well. They called on the Lord knowing that to call on the Lord means you're willing to take an assignment and do what you need to do. And so I want to sample that tonight, like the hip hop artists. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do. Now, you got to say it right. We sure do need to vote now. For us, the right to vote is not just a constitutional matter, but a fight born out of struggle and sacrifice. It's a gift, actually. It's a gift from God. It's a gift of the God of justice. 2,600 years ago, God had his prophets to say to every nation, if you want to please God, you have to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly before God. And that admonition was especially to those who hold office, who have power. And 2,000 years ago, God had his son say that when it comes to politics and it comes to public policy, the issue is what does a politician, what does a government do for the least of these? That really the truth is public policy must be judged from the bottom up. Eric, I know I'm messing with your mic, I'm sorry. From the bottom up, Tana and Pam, not from the top down. Now think about where we are in time for a moment, and you'll understand just by the history I'm getting ready to share with you why, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. Here we are today, 404 years since the first ship landed in Virginia, bringing slaves. Here we are, 233 years ago, when Crispus Attucks was the first African American and one of the first people to die fighting for this country, while at the same time people who looked like him were being considered slaves. Here we are tonight. Tonight we sit here 247 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which says that everybody has an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And inalienable means it is God-given. It's a part of natural law. It comes with the package of being born, inalienable. But inalienable also means you can't give it away. Because if you give away life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then you are basically saying that you have decided that the oppressor is your God. Here we are, 230 years since the Constitution was drafted. Here we are, 236 years when people of ebony hue were fractionized in that Constitution and considered to be 3/5 of a person. Here we are, 194 years since Mexico outlawed slavery, and 188 years since Texas and America revolted against Mexico because they wanted to keep their slaves. Be careful how you talk about Latinos and folk coming from Mexico. You need to know the real history. California was Mexico. Texas was Mexico. New Mexico was Mexico. Arizona was Mexico. You got to know about the Louisiana Purchase. You got to know about what was stolen, because when the folk are trying to come here, they're not trying to come to our home, they're trying to come back home. They are Americans, South Americans, but still Americans. And much of the reason that they're fleeing is because of policies that America engaged in that made Guatemala and other places so bad. Here we are, 174 years since Harriet Tubman escaped slavery. And since Harriet Tubman went back to get people out of slavery, and when she did, 100 and some odd years ago, Harriet Tubman said, now, if you go with me, you're gonna be free. Either one way or the other, you're gonna walk with me to Philadelphia, you're gonna walk with me to Canada, or I'm gonna use this .38 pistol and send you home, but you're not gonna go back to slavery. Yeah, that was Harriet. Here we are, somebody say, here we are. 171 years since Frederick Douglass actually delivered a 4th of July speech where he said that the celebrating independence in America was fraud, bombast, and hypocrisy until America did right by the sons and daughters of slaves. Here we are. Tonight, 160 years since the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation that did not free the slaves, freed all of the slaves in states of rebellion. So if the states had just stopped rebelling, they could have kept their slaves, but they couldn't help it. Here we are, 158 years since the end of the Civil War. Here we are, 156 years since the 14th Amendment that declared that every person, not every American, but every person has a right to equal protection under the law. In other words, the 14th Amendment says if you are inside these borders, you don't have to be, quote unquote, a citizen. If you are inside of these borders, you have a right to equal protection under the law. Here we are. 158 years since slavery was outlawed constitutionally. The 13th Amendment was passed December 6th, 1865, a day we ought to remember, December 6th. December 6th. And slavery was outlawed, but all the states didn't ratify it. And we're the only people that have ever had to have the Constitution say we ought not be slaves. Here we are, 153 years since the ratification of the 15th Amendment that protected voting rights for men, black men and white men, because originally when the Constitution was written, if you were not a male who owned land, you couldn't vote. So women were left out, Indians were left out, black men were left out, black women were left out. Here we are 125 years since the riots in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, where literally there was a coup d'etat that took over and declared that this is how we run people out of office. So when you see January 6th, you need to understand January 6th is not the first time that America has ever seen what we've saw. Here we are 115 years after the Springfield riots. Here we are 114 years since the Niagara movement, which became the NAACP. Now, the sister said I was the president of the NAACP. True, but what I'd like you to know is I am the graduate of 15 arrests. I'm a member of the Poor People's Campaign. I've been a pastor for 30 years, right? But here we are, 114 years since the Niagara movement came together, that became the NAACP, and only 7 of the members were black. When the NAACP was founded, it was a majority white organization, the descendants of former abolitionists who recognized that they had to stand against racism. Here we are, 88 years since the New Deal. Things like minimum wage and Social Security, and 88 years since corporate folks said, we don't want that, and they've been fighting it ever since. And the #1 way they've been fighting it is every time they can, they cry about tax cuts. That's what they said to Roosevelt, we can't afford it. Here we are, 85 years since the Fair Labor Standard Act. Are y'all going with me? The Fair Labor Standard Act established a minimum wage of 25 cents an hour. It's purchasing in 1968 at $1.60 an hour, which if we had kept the minimum wage going with inflation, the minimum wage today would be almost $20 an hour. And yet, the minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 since 2009. Here we are. 79 years since Primus King was denied a right to vote in Georgia primary. Here we are 73 years since Ann Braden, a white woman from Kentucky, spearheaded the desegregation of hospitals in Kentucky. She got arrested in 1951. And she led a delegation of Southern white women to organize the Civil Rights Congress to Mississippi to protest the execution of Willie McGee. Don't you ever think that the only folk that have ever fought for the release and freedom and deliverance of black folk have been black folk. Here we are, 69 years since Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson that said separate but equal was Constitution. Here we are 68 years since the brutal murder of Emmett Till. Here we are 63 years since the sit-ins at A&T State University and Bennett College. Here we are 60 years since the murder of Medgar Evers. Here we are 60 years since the March on Washington. And the March on Washington was not a black march. It was a march for jobs and freedom. In fact, I Have a Dream was not Dr. King's speech. The title of the speech was Normalcy Never Again. I Have a Dream was his hoop. Every black preacher got a hoop. But that's not what he was mainly talking about. What he was mainly talking about is the fact that we had injustice. In fact, the March on Washington had an agenda. You know what was the first point on the agenda? Raising the minimum wage by 75%. To $2 an hour, which today would be almost $20 an hour. You know what the second thing was? Every able-bodied person would have a living wage job. You know what the second one was? The Labor Standards Act would be expanded. You know what the third one was? More money for public education and desegregation of public schools. And when you know what the fifth item was? Voting rights. And they wanted one bill, an omnibus bill, that would have covered all of that. And that's why John Lewis at the March on Washington said, even though we are here, this particular Civil Rights Act of '64 that they were debating and Strom Thurmond was filibustering, he said it's not good enough because even if it's passed, it will leave thousands of our black and white brothers and sisters still languishing in poverty. Here we are. 59 years since Fannie Lou Hamer said there comes a time you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Here we are 59 years since the signing of the Civil Rights Act, 58 years since Lyndon Baines Johnson signed into law legislation that established Medicare and Medicaid. You watch these people today that say they want to end Medicare and Medicaid. Huh? 58 years ago, Lyndon Baines signed that into law as a part of the Great Society and the War on Poverty. And you know where he announced the war on poverty? In Harlan County, Kentucky. In fact, in 1896, when the Supreme Court ruled that segregation was legal, the only judge that voted against it was Justice Harlan from Harlan County, Kentucky. He was a white judge who declared, they called him the Great Dissenter. And he was the one, it was because of his dissent that then Thurgood Marshall and others were able to build their legal theories. But the legal theory came from a judge right here in Kentucky. I'm going somewhere. Because, see, one of the things I'm concerned about now is I don't want folk to be loud and wrong. And part of the reason, see, you're not going to get people to vote by just telling them to vote. You first got to tell them the history, and then you got to tell them what's going on and where they're threatening. So since folk are listening all over the country, I want to talk to them. Here we are, 58 years since Dr. King told the AFL-CIO the only voting bloc, Charles, that could transform America would be for blacks and poor whites and Latinos and Native Americans and labor unions to learn how to work together. Here we are, 58 years since the signing of the Bloody Sunday and the Voting Rights Act. And by the way, during the march from Selma to Montgomery, white and black people lost their lives. Am I right? Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed, but also was James Reed, a white Unitarian minister. Also was Viola Woosa, who was killed 25 minutes after Dr. King spoke, standing on the steps of the Alabama State House as she was taking white men back to Selma. And the only reason they caught her was because the FBI had an informant in the car with the Klan when they killed her. Here we are. Here we are, 56 years since the assassination of Martin King. 55 years since the signing of the Fair Housing Act. 52 years since my parents fought to integrate schools in eastern North Carolina after my father left Lexington, Kentucky, pastoring a church in Lexington. Here we are. Here we are 14 years since Barack, whose name means praise the Lord, was sworn in to be president of the United States. Here we are 11 years since the shooting of Trayvon Martin, and we still don't have a bill to deal with police violence. Here we are 11 years since secret documents revealed that the National Organization for Marriage that claims that they're against gay people because they're really for traditional marriage, but somebody found the secret documents and they said, we don't really care about marriage. What we're really trying to do is split the black and the LGBT community in order to defeat Obama. Here we are. And the reason I wanted to start here tonight, Tana, with these young folk and older folk and everybody here, is that we know if we ever needed to vote, we need to vote now if we know our history, because our history tells us we've been through too much. We've seen too much. We've fought too much. We've struggled through too much. We've seen too many times that we have overcome the obstacles for us to turn back and sit down now. Look at your neighbor real good and say, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. But not only must our voting must be rooted in history, our voting must be rooted in the right now trauma. See, we have a right now trauma where I call it DOTS, D-O-T-S, DOTS, where people don't even have what we call let's turn it down a little bit, post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have daily ongoing traumatic syndrome, DOTS. They don't even get a rest, right? And when you know that, thank you, a little bit, when you know that, we need to be educated. You can't just say to folk, vote. You got to tell them why. You got to let them know what people in power are literally doing to their lives. People who they could move in order to get better power. So did you know that before the pandemic hit, there were 140 million people living in poverty? 140 million people. Now, the government numbers tell us there was only 39 million. But we got some researchers to do and found out that there were 140 million poor and low wealth people in poverty. That's 140 million people, one emergency away from economic ruin, all because of policy. Not because they're lazy, not because they're trifling, but because of policy that doesn't even pay people a living wage. Did you know that 60% of black people live in poverty and or low wealth? 60%, not 20, 60% of black people. That's 24 million black people. Did you know that 64% of Latinos live in poverty? That's 38 million Latinos. Did you know that 40% of Asians live in poverty and low wealth? That's 8 million Asians. Did you know that 60% of indigenous people live in poverty? That's 2 million. Did you know that 33% of white people live in poverty and low wealth? And that's 66 million people. So watch this. Percentage-wise, in the black community, black folk are 40% higher in terms of the impact of poverty. But in raw numbers, there are 40 million more poor white people than there are poor black people. Now, why is it then every time people want to talk against the poor, they show a black person? Why does that lie told? Because it is an attempt to diminish of poverty so that people will not organize, rise up, and vote against the people that are creating the policies that cause it. Did you know that poverty is the 4th leading cause of death? 4th leading cause of death. More people die from poverty than diabetes, respiratory diseases, gun violence. Did you know we ought to have a Surgeon General's warning on a low-wage job? It ought to say a low-wage job is deadly to your health, right? Folk are dying. Now imagine if drinking Kool-Aid was the fourth leading cause of death. You would have a White House summit, you would have an emergency, right? Why is it? And I'm not anti, hear me now, I'm not anti dealing with police violence, because police violence is ugly, is vicious. You know, a gun and a badge is too much power for a bigot, right? But now, if we gonna march in the street when the police kill one person, where should we be if 800 people are dying a day from poverty? 800 people. 800 people. 250,000 people a year. And we did a study, the Pew Foundation did a study that said even in the church, they examined 50,000 sermons and found out that poverty doesn't even get talked about. Even in the church. Most organizations don't even have poverty as a top issue, even black organizations. And yet 800 people are dying a day from poverty. And they're dying because of policy. Did you know that in the 1980s, people in the poorest communities were 9% more likely to die each year? But now people in the poor community are 49% more likely to die. And 61% more likely to die since COVID. And this gap in death didn't start with COVID, because when I told you that poverty was the fourth leading cause of death, that was before COVID. Did you know that 350,000 people died so far during COVID from the lack of health care? They didn't die from COVID. They died from the lack of health care. And we in America, because of politicians that vote against it, we're the only nation of the 25 wealthiest nations in this country, in this world, that doesn't offer some form of universal health care. Turn your neighbor and say, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. Now, you notice I didn't come with a bumper sticker and a couple of rhymes. I can do that, but that's not the season we're in, y'all. Folk need to be taught what's really going on so that you can go out and teach people, because getting all riled up is not going to make people vote. Now, but if we get riled up about the right thing, Did you know that 18 million American families are paying more than 50% of their resources on housing? Did you know that 600,000 people are homeless and nearly 5 million are one payment away from homelessness? Did you know that the top 1% of this country owns 90% of the wealth? Did you know 63% of workers live paycheck to paycheck? Did you know that 2 years ago, when Democrats had both houses and the president, we had the chance to pass a $15 minimum wage across the board, which would have lifted 50 million Americans out of poverty and 43% of all black people out of poverty. And 2 Democrats and 49 Republicans said no to 50 million people. Including your senator, both your senators. Did you know that the average worker makes $54 less a week than they made 50 years ago? Did you know that there are 87 million people either uninsured or underinsured in America right now? This is why we need to be voting. Did you know that millions of people can get up every morning and buy unleaded gas and can't buy unleaded water? And it's not just in COVID, it's up in the mountains where the water has been contaminated when they cut the tops of the mountains off, but it's also in the inner cities. Did you know that we spend 54 cents of every discretionary dollar on the military-industrial complex? And not on the soldiers, not on treating soldiers so that they won't kill themselves and suicide. No, we spend it on unnecessary war machinery, half of it that doesn't, some of it that doesn't even work. Did you know our military budget is now over $800 billion? nearly $1 trillion. And if we cut our military budget by half, I'm not saying we should, I'm saying if we did, we would still have more money in our military budget than Iran, Iraq, North Korea, China, and Russia combined. You see, what if folk knew this? They would say what? If we ever? Y'all see where I'm trying to go with this? And lastly, do you realize that we have less voting rights today than we had in 1965? That the Voting Rights Act was gutted June 25th, 2013, that neither party has fixed it. We were 2 votes away from fixing it 2 years ago, and once again, two Democrats, one out of West Virginia, one out of Arizona, and 49 Republicans said no. One of them lied to John Lewis while he was alive, signed onto the bill. Manchin signed onto the bill as a sponsor, told John Lewis while he was living, I'm gonna take care of this. John Lewis died and his support died. His support died when the U.S. Chamber of Commerce called him and said, there are 2 things you better not do. You better not vote to raise the minimum wage, and you better not vote for voting rights, which lets us know that you can't ever separate the fight from voting rights from the fight for living wages. Huh? Somebody say, if we ever needed to vote, we need to vote now. Did you know that there have been hundreds of bills passed all across this country to either roll back the right to vote, to add atrocious voter ID, or to gerrymander vote? Understand, this is how Trump won. Trump lost the popular vote, y'all. He lost it by millions of votes. He won because of 80,000 votes in 3 states. 80,000 votes in 3 states. That's all, not 80,000 in each state, combined across 3 states. 80,000 votes gave him the Electoral College, and the Electoral College is a carryover from when the Constitution was written in the 3/5 compromise around black folk. And the purpose of the Electoral College is really, if a candidate wins the popular vote that the power structure doesn't really want, they can run a campaign to win the Electoral College, because you can win by 10 million votes in the general popular vote, and if you don't get the Electoral College, you still lose. Now, in those 3 states, 80,000 votes, but in those 3 states, nearly 2 million voters who could vote didn't vote. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do. Now, I hear y'all. Y'all said, Barbara, you came all the way here to Kentucky, and I understand you talking to the folk out in the video land, but what about us? Glad you asked. Between in Kentucky, did you know to meet their basic needs, a household with 2 adults and 2 children got to make $23 an hour in Kentucky? And yet, because your legislature and your congressional people have not changed it, your minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. And so at the current minimum wage in Kentucky, an individual has to work 89 hours a week to possibly afford a basic 2-bedroom apartment. Did you know in Kentucky there are 832 people, or 41% of the workforce, that makes less than $15 an hour? Work hard every day. Did you know that this includes 738,000 adults? Did you know that it included 38% of Asians and 62% of natives, 32% of Asian and native workers? 62% of black folk in Kentucky make less than $15 an hour. 62% of Hispanic workers and 38% of white workers, even though the number of white workers is the largest number of those that make less than a living wage. What if folk knew that? What if people knew it could be changed? What if people knew the only reason it's like that is because who's elected? Did you know 51% of the women in this state and 67% of working women of color make less than $15 an hour? In Kentucky, did you know there were 10 voter restriction bills introduced in 3 years? 2 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in 2023? Did you know these 3 of the voter restriction bills were passed? Did you know that the state went after abortion and banned it? Huh? And the very folk that say they don't want government in their business want to be in folks' bedroom? I ain't never seen folk that want to be all up in folks' bedroom, but they don't want people to have health care. Huh? If we ever. Did you know that Kentucky has only spent $1.1 billion of the $2.1 billion that it was given for the American Rescue Plan? Did you know that McConnell and others voted against the American Rescue Plan and then came here and bragged about the money that was coming in the state? Somebody say, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. Did you know that in this state and in other states, religious nationalists go around saying this? This is what they actually put in ad, that the only moral issue, they call it the God agenda. They say the God agenda is being against abortion, being against gay people, being against immigration, being for guns, and being for Republicans. Now, you know what kind of lie that is. I ain't gonna say it since I'm in the church, but it is what. That's straight from the pit of hell. A God agenda is when I was hungry. Did you help? Did you feed me? When I was naked. That's a God agenda. A God agenda is treating everybody right, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of their color. Huh? Did you know that all over the scriptures tell us how to do public policy? Isaiah 10 says, woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights. Jeremiah 22 says, tell the king and the leaders, this is what you're supposed to do. Do justice, do righteousness, deliver folk from the hand of the oppressor, stop people from being robbed, stop doing violence against the immigrant, stop doing violence against the orphan and the children, stop doing violence against the women, and stop shedding innocent blood. Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to preach good news to the poor. Y'all hear me out there online and hear me in this room, because see, y'all getting ready to go canvass. My job tonight was to give you something to say. Rather than y'all just vote. You got to go tell people, you've got to take these placards with you and ask for, did you know you could make $15 an hour if we voted the right people in? Everybody in your family could have health care. People don't have to die. We must have an educated populace, because what has happened is the extremists get us stuck on culture wars. Like who's against trans folk, who's against gay folk, who's against women's right to choose, and who's against immigrant. But culture wars are a deflection. And what it allows is it allows failed politicians who've not addressed the issues of the people to hide behind hate and division. Did you know also that doing things the right way is actually the best way? Did you know that if we had universal health care, we could save 300,000 lives? Did you know if we had Medicare for all, it would save America $450 billion in health care costs? Did you know if we put more money in education than in mass incarceration, that it would save us? Did you know that child poverty costs us more money than to feed the children? Did you know that it would only cost us $12,800 a year per person to make sure that children and family had safe housing? And that the cost for making sure people had safe housing is less than the cost for taking care of the homeless? Did you know that every dollar spent on food stamps generates almost $2 in the economy? And yet, with these realities, we got politicians, extremists, who literally have become so bold. And this is why we sure enough have to vote, because they've become so bold now they don't even lie. They used to would hide stuff. Now, but they'll look you right in your face and say, elect me and I'll take your health care. It's just straight up gangster. Yeah, elect me and I'll take your voting rights. I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna do it. Elect me and I'm gonna make sure you don't get a living wage. Elect me and I'll cut your Social Security. Elect me and I'll resegregate your school. Elect me and I won't pass a bill on police violence. Just elect me. Elect me and I'll let poverty stay just like it is. And when folk become that bold, if we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. Well, I'm about to make my way to my seat. But I want you to know tonight that the word for vote in Hebrew is the same word for voice. In Hebrew, the word is koil, K-O-L. And the word for vote and voice in Hebrew is the same word. So whenever in the Bible you hear, and the voice of God thundered, it's also saying the vote of God thundered. And the same God that gave you a voice gave you a vote. You see, a monkey can't do nothing but be a monkey. A lion can't do anything but be a lion. But human beings, we get to choose. We can vote. And so if we don't vote, we are saying God didn't bless us. And if we let somebody take our vote or undermine our vote, then we are allowing them to treat us less than a human being. Well, you ought to turn to your neighbor and say, can't nobody have my humanity. Because God gave me this right. Now let me make this live and tell you the power, because I don't want y'all to be pessimistic when you live here. In Alabama, for instance, there are 1.9 million eligible poor and low-wealth voters who could vote as of 2020. But in Alabama, only 1.1 million voted. So 800,000 poor and low-wealth people didn't vote in Alabama, 250,000 black people, but the number of people that didn't vote outdistanced the margin that people won by. So folk didn't win because they won because we set out. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. You got people worrying about the Florida and a governor down there, but did you know there are 7.6 million poor and low income voters in Florida? The last election, 2020, however, only 4.7 million voted. So that meant 2.8 million didn't vote. And of black folk, 400,000 poor and low-wealth black people didn't vote. 1.7 million white poor and low-income voters didn't vote. But the margin of victory in the presidential election was only 300,000 votes, and you had 1 million, almost 2 million people who did not vote. Did not vote. Somebody say, if we ever. The same is true in Mississippi. Over 1 million poor and low-income people that could vote, but only 500,000 that did vote, and the 500,000 that didn't vote outdistanced the number that the people won by. In Texas, 7 million voters, poor and low-income voters that could vote, but only 3 million voters voted, which meant 3 million voters didn't vote. So that governor is in office not because he's so bad, but because we're not operating in our strength. If we ever needed to vote, we sure need to vote now. And in Kentucky, 1.4 million poor and low-wealth people are eligible to vote, but only 700,000 voted in 2020. 600 and some thousand, and the margin of, voted. So that meant 600,000 Kentuckians that are poor and low income who need health care and who need living wages didn't vote, which meant the number of poor and low wealth Kentuckians that didn't vote outdistances the margin of victory. Now here's the number one reason people say they don't vote. They say nobody talks to us, and they are true. So if the politicians won't talk to them, let's us go talk to them. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying. Let's get out here and raise up an army of people. Let's go door to door. Let's go mountain to mountain. Let's go holler to holler. Let's go hood to hood. Because it's truth-telling time. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. I stopped by to tell you, I don't know if Republicans are going to show up. I don't know if Democrats are going to show up. But I know po folk better to hell shut up. If stuff is going to get better, we're going to have to use the power that we have. And can I say this before I go? Our parents did more with less. Touch your neighbor and say they did more with less. With less, they beat slavery. With less, they beat Jim Crow. With less, they beat lynching. With less, they beat the KKK. With less, Harriet Tubman got 500 folk out of slavery. She didn't have email, she didn't have text, she didn't have Facebook, she didn't have FaceTime, she didn't have Twitter. All she had was a made-up mind, a faith in God, and a 38 in her pocket, and moss on the north side of the tree, and a North Star to guide her. Our folk did more with less. And so from now until November, you better email everybody you know. You better call everybody you know. You better knock on every door you know. You better text everybody you know. You better direct mail everybody you know. You better Facebook everybody you know. And you better real friend everybody you know and tell them to show up and show out. Snapchat, whatever it is. If it's old, bring it back. If it's new, learn how to do it. But tell everybody, because God is not going to do for us what we can do for ourselves. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. And what I know about God, if we do what we're supposed to do, then God will show up. Do I have a witness here? Do I have a witness here? When Moses stretched out his rod, didn't God show up? Yeah, when Noah built the ark, didn't God show up? When Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro did their part, didn't God show up? When David threw his rock, didn't God show up? When Daniel prayed in the lion's den, didn't God show up? When Esther said, if I perish, but I'm going to see the king, didn't God show up? When a woman with an issue of blood touched the hem of his garment, didn't God show up? When a boy gave him some fish and cornbread, didn't God show up? When Jesus went to the cross, didn't God show up and tear Satan's kingdom down? If we do our part, God will show up. When Thurgood Marshall went to court, didn't God show up? When Rosa Parks sat down, didn't God show up? Every time we act, God shows up. And I've got a question. Is there anybody in Kentucky that's ready to do your part? Organize your part. Stand up and say your part. And know that if you do your part, God will show up. If we ever needed to vote, we sure do need to vote now. God bless your heart. God bless your heart. God bless your heart. God bless your heart. Now while you're standing, turn to your neighbor and say, this is going to take work. No matter how excited we get in here, if we don't walk on Saturday and Friday and Sunday, we got to October the 10th. And there's two groups you got to go after. One, those that are eligible but have never registered. And two, those who already registered but they're not voting. Don't cuss them out. Inform them. That's right. They don't know. A lot of them don't know the power because the media and others spend so much time. Oh, Trump won Kentucky by 29%. No, he didn't, because Kentucky has never voted her full strength. And poor and low wealth people have never voted their same strength. But God has fixed it so now that poor and low wealth people now make up 30% of the electorate and 44% in battleground states. There are moments in history when the divine makes it so that the stone that the builders rejected can now be the cornerstone of a new reality. Let's go get them. Let's go get them. Let's go get them. Connor.
Give it up for that education piece. And even though we're excited about Bishop Barber being here, it's the truth that we stand on. Now, this is the best part. The doors have been opened to us And if you've ever been in anybody's church, you know there's a collection plate that goes around. That's my part. I get to ask you to give back so that we can bless this church who has honored us by opening the door and for us to be educated. My 3 things that I stand on when I talk about people who are impacted: we locate, we educate, and then we have to persuade them, because they do not believe, and I didn't either, in the democratic process for which we are shown. But we heard the truth tonight. Was anybody blessed up in here? I know it's getting a little late. We've got some snacks next door. I'm gonna turn it back over to your MCs so that they can end the night. Now, this is my favorite thing that I love to say. You all could have been anywhere tonight, but you chose to come here. And for that, I am truly grateful. And on behalf of all of the organizations and the truth that we heard, what are you going to do? I think Bishop Barber forgot to make an announcement about tomorrow. And so I got your back. So tomorrow, and I heard from your security that it might be 10, but you might be sleeping in, so y'all give me a call. At 10 o'clock, with Representative Attica Scott has arranged for us to be over on Virginia Avenue. Bishop Barber is gonna walk with us, shake hands, register people to vote. So we're asking all of you all that can come out with us. It's located, for those in Louisville that knows, it's located over where the historical Black library is being reconstructed. They tried to turn it into a police station, but y'all went down there and they did turn it into, and y'all went and took it back. That's what I'm talking about. Snatch that back. There's a song that says, snatch back what the devil stole from us. That we said, yeah, we on that battlefield. So you heard the message, you heard the education behind it. You've got reason to tell people why they should come and join us and vote. Register, folks. We have registration cards. Even if you're not registered and you're sitting in here tonight, I know you can't go out of here without registering tonight. So back in the foyer, we have people, the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth has a table. They're registering the people to vote. We're inviting you out tomorrow to walk with us over on Virginia Avenue. It's
2743 Virginia Avenue.
2743 Virginia Avenue. Come and join us. We need everyone, and I hope to see those young people out there with us, because they are not, as Reverend Barber said, they are our future, but we need them right now. Right now. Right now. Mr. Neblett, you have traveled for a long way. Russellville, Kentucky, that's not an easy ride down here. We appreciate your presence. We are standing on your shoulders and our ancestors' shoulders. So thank you. I'd like to thank my family for coming down and supporting me out of Lexington. All the people who have traveled, please be safe. If you're gonna stay over, please join us tomorrow. And as we conclude, I'm gonna bring the MCs back up here. It has been my pleasure being here tonight. Priscilla, yes, sir. There's an announcement. Yes, sir, on the 7th.
All over the state. I want you to say that in that mic so people in other states can model what y'all doing. Tell them what you all are doing so that folk across the country can follow Kentucky's lead.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what Bishop Barber's saying. What we're doing here in Kentucky, the seed that we've poured water onto, is we ain't just talking about it today. We're gonna go this weekend across the state. And we're gonna go to those neighborhoods where working class poor folks and working class people of all races, we're gonna knock on those doors. We're gonna knock on the doors that Bishop Barber just talked about. The people who aren't registered and the people who are registered that didn't vote. We going out across the state this weekend. Thanks to the organizations that have helped organize this, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, Forward Justice Action Network, Kentucky Poor People's Campaign, Vocal Kentucky, many more.
If we ever
needed to vote.
We
sure do need to vote now.
Thank you so much. There's refreshments to the left of us. You can go out the front door there, but please join them for refreshments. And we have our collection plate going around, so please be generous. Help us out tonight. And thanks to Reverend William J. Barber. Thank him.